Finding himself trapped between vast minefields and stiff British resistance, cut off from supply lines, Rommel got into a desperate situation. However, on the morning of May 29, supply vehicles, supported by the Italian Trieste and Ariete divisions, were able to penetrate through the minefield north of Bir Hakeim under heavy fire and delivered the much-needed supplies to the encircled Axis forces. On May 30, Rommel began to advance back west towards his original front line to create a bridgehead on the eastern edge of the minefield and to connect with the Italian X-Corps units that had cleared the route through the minefields to the west. In this attack to the west, which continued over the next 2 days, 2 breaches were created in the minefield leading back to his original line, giving him a direct route for supply deliveries and splitting the Allied front into 2 halves. During this attack, the British 150th Infantry Brigade of the 50th, Northumbrian, Infantry Division was destroyed in the box at Sidi Mufta. On the night of June 1, Rommel sent the 90th Light Infantry Division and the Trieste Division south to resume attacks on Bir Hakeim, from where raids were continually organized to attack his supply lines. The next assault did not yield the expected results, and the struggle for Bir Hakeim continued for another 10 days. Auchinleck did not know the extent of the desperate situation of Rommel's supply lines, but he was encouraged by the excessively optimistic estimates of German tank losses received from intelligence. He urgently ordered Ritchie to begin a counterattack along the coast to take advantage of the absence of German tanks and break through to Timami, and then to Mezzalai. However, Ritchie was more concerned with the defense of Tobruk and focused on sending reinforcements to the box at El Adem and creating new defensive boxes opposite the new gaps in the minefield. On June 5, the 8th Army finally began its counterattack, but the enemy had sufficient time to prepare, and in the north, the 13th Corps was unable to advance. The attack of the 7th Armored and 5th Indian Divisions on the eastern flank of the Cauldron began at 2:50 on June 5 and initially progressed successfully, as the advancing infantry secured the planned objectives. However, the main Axis defensive line was located further west than expected, and therefore, when the 22nd Armored Brigade passed through it, it came under heavy fire, slowing its advance. At dawn, the Armored Brigade of the 32nd Army joined the attack, advancing from the north, and also came under heavy fire, losing 50 out of its 70 tanks. By the beginning of the second half of the day on June 5, Rommel decided to attack in the east, with the forces of Ariete and the 21st Armored Division, and in the north towards Knightsbridge, the defensive box of the English, with units from the 15th Armored Division. In the east, the advance on Bir el Hatmat defeated the tactical headquarters of 2 British divisions, as well as the headquarters of the 9th and 10th Indian Infantry Brigades and other, smaller units. Command and control were completely shattered. The 22nd Armored Brigade, having lost 60 of its 156 tanks, was forced to retreat from the battlefield due to a renewed attack by the German 15th Division. Of the attacking Allied forces, 3 Indian infantry battalions, a reconnaissance regiment, and 4 artillery regiments found themselves in a kettle. Deprived of tank support, they faced an impossible task on June 6 and were dispersed one after the other. Rommel continued to hold the initiative, building up his forces in the Cauldron and directing attacks on various enemy strongpoints. Between June 6 and 8, he began new coordinated attacks on Bir Hakeim, but although the defensive perimeter shrank, the French defenders continued to hold out, and the fire from their heavy artillery, combined with support from columns of the 7th Motorized Brigade and the 29th Indian Infantry Brigade, continued to inflict damage on the enemy's communications. Reinforced by new combat groups, Axis forces launched a new offensive on June 9, ultimately breaking through the Allies' defenses deep into June 10. At this time, the position of the Free French forces became hopeless, and Ritchie ordered them to evacuate that very evening. Despite being surrounded, General Koenig was able to find passages between the Axis positions to get through them and meet with the transports of the 7th Motorized Brigade about 8 kilometers to the west. About 2,700 soldiers, including 200 wounded, from his original garrison of 3,600 men left Bir Hakeim. When the 90th Light Infantry Division occupied this position on June 11, they captured only 500 Frenchmen, mostly wounded, who were unable to evacuate.